A wall of blue Arctic wind hits your chest so hard that your breath stops instantly in your throat. The ice fog stings your eyes, and every breath you take turns the wet hair inside your nose into tiny needles. You don't have a wooden house behind you. There is not a single dry tree on this flat gray plain, and your hands are too cold to strike a flint. If you stand still for 5 minutes, your blood slows down, your fingers go black, and you turn into a frozen statue right where you stand. You don't survive this frozen hell by being soft. You survive by learning to live like a wild animal. Look at the huge gap of time that we ignore while sitting in our warm living rooms today. For over 100,000 years, giant sheets of thick ice covered most of the lands where major cities stand right now. Modern houses, hot showers, and electric heaters have been around for just a tiny second of human history. Yet thousands of families lived out in the open tundra, with no warm walls, sleeping on frozen mud night after night. You exist today because your great-grandfathers carried an internal engine tough enough to outlast a sea of ice that never melted. Archaeologists digging through frozen dirt in eastern sites found something that completely shocked their old ideas about ancient life. They uncovered giant circular huts built entirely out of mammoth skulls, heavy jawbones, and long curved tusks hooked together like iron fences. Soft history books told you people back then just ran inside warm caves whenever the big snow hit the land. But on these massive flat plains, there were 0 caves for hundreds of miles, forcing hunters to build houses out of giant animal bones. They dragged thousands of pounds of mammoth skeletons across the ice to build strong domes, sealing every hole with thick fur skin. If you made one lazy stitch while sewing your winter clothes back then, the freezing wind found that small gap and killed you in your sleep. You couldn't just throw an old pelt over your back and expect to stay alive when the wind reached 50 below zero. Hunters used thin needles carved from bird bones to stitch 2 layers of leather together using dry animal tendons as thread. The inner layer turned soft fur inward against the skin to trap body heat, while the smooth outer hide blocked the biting wind. If you sweated while tracking a herd, that moisture turned into a sheet of ice inside your shirt that froze your skin off. Wait, look at how small hunting groups got enough energy to keep their hearts beating when every plant was dead under 10 feet of snow. Long before anyone talked about health vitamins, ancient tribes knew that eating clean, lean meat alone would starve a man's body to death in a few weeks. They cracked open giant mammoth leg bones with heavy stones to suck out the thick, warm fat marrow hidden inside the bone center. They drank fresh, hot blood straight out of a dead beast's chest before the dark red liquid could freeze into solid ice blocks. They didn't eat for taste. They used raw fat as heavy fuel to keep their inner blood warm. Think about the mental nightmare of living through a 6-month winter where the sun never comes up over the horizon. You sit squeezed inside a bone hut with your whole group while a blizzard roars outside like an angry bear for days on end. You couldn't burn dry wood because no trees could grow on the rock-hard frozen dirt of the open tundra plain. Hunters collected dried animal dung and crushed bone fat to burn inside small stone bowls, keeping tiny yellow spots of light alive. You lived in a small dark space filled with grease smoke, listening to the ground crack outside from the deep freeze. DNA scientists looking at modern human genes found a crazy fact about how our bloodlines made it through the big cold. Groups living on the edge of the glaciers built up biological changes that forced their liver to burn raw fat directly into internal heat. Your ancestors didn't just invent bone needles and skin tents. Their body engines actually changed under daily cold pressure to keep them alive. The people whose bodies couldn't generate intense internal heat died out fast in the snow, leaving behind tough survivors who passed their hot blood to you. You carry the genetic remnants of a human furnace built to burn fat and resist sub-zero death. Look at how old hunting groups turned terrible whiteouts into their best chance to get food for the tribe. When a blinding snowstorm hit the plains, giant predators like cave lions and saber-toothed cats stopped moving, completely blinded by the blowing ice dust. Ancient hunters used the loud roar of the wind to hide their heavy footsteps, crawling right up to giant woolly rhinos stuck in deep snowbanks. They drove long wooden spears deep into the beasts' ribs, using their full weight while the storm raged around them. They turned the worst weather on Earth into a hunting shield to bag thousands of pounds of fresh meat and fat. Wait. Stop and ask yourself this uncomfortable question right now. Did modern warm houses make us strong, or did they turn us into weak creatures who freeze at the first cold breeze? For thousands of centuries, staying alive meant having tough skin, a fast liver, and a mind that didn't break during months of freezing dark. If a hunter got caught outside back then, his body had to produce raw heat from the inside to keep his lungs moving without any electric heat. Today, a quick power cut during a bad winter storm sends whole cities into panic because nobody knows how to stay warm without a wall socket. We traded our natural body shield for thin wires that can break at any second. Imagine the nightmare of waking up inside a hide tent to find your water skin turned into a solid block of ice beside your head. You couldn't turn a metal tap or light a gas stove to get a warm drink when everything around you was frozen rock hard. Hunters had to put small chunks of ice inside their mouths for hours, using their own body heat to melt tiny drops to swallow. Your throat burned from the dry air, your lips split open and bled, and your fingers throbbed with deep cold pain every morning. You made it through only if your mind was hard enough to take months of pure physical discomfort without quitting. Look at how your body acts today when you step outside your front door into a cold wind without a heavy jacket on. Your skin gets tiny bumps, your jaw shakes up and down, and your brain tells you to run back inside to the heater right away. That quick wave of panic isn't just a mild reaction to cold air. It is an old warning alarm left in your nerves by the big white trap. Your brain remembers what happens when you get caught out in the open cold without shelter, fat, or fire to protect your life. The most intense part of this human story is that early people didn't just hide from the ice. They used giant extinct beasts to build their whole world. They carved bone needles, built heavy spear throwers, made grease lamps, and stitched multi-layer winter suits that match modern cold gear. The terrible threat of freezing to death pushed human brain power into high gear, forcing our ancestors to invent tools long before farming ever started. The frozen land didn't kill human life. It turned our brain into a sharp tool of pure survival power. Look at the big warning sitting inside our modern world full of heated rooms, soft coats, and steady electricity. We built a life so safe from natural forces that our bodies forgot how to handle real weather stress. When you hide from every cold wind, your inner fire goes cold, leaving you weak and easily broken when real trouble hits the town. Ancient humans survived a brutal icy world because their bodies were tested every single hour by hard work and bitter weather. You are living inside a warm room using a body that was built in a 100,000-year ice storm. Your blood still holds the old heat of that biological furnace every time you walk out into a cold wind and feel your chest tighten up. When your body shivers to warm your heart, that isn't a glitch. It is the old engine starting up to save your life from the freeze. You are built to handle hard times, cold winds, and tough days just like your family line did across the flat tundra plains. You come straight from a hard line of hunters who looked at a mountain of ice and refused to let their fire go out. Understand that real human toughness isn't something you read about in thin books or buy in a store full of fancy gear. It is written in the massive bone huts dug out of the dirt, the small bone needles saved in ice caves, and your own body. Once you see how hard your ancestors had to be just to keep their blood moving through the polar night, everything looks different. You stop seeing early humans as simple cave dwellers and start seeing them as tough masters of extreme survival. The most vital lesson you can use right now is to stop letting easy comfort make your body and mind soft and lazy. Your brain and your blood need real challenges, hard physical work, and tough times to stay sharp, strong, and alive. The ancient furnace inside your blood never turned off completely. It just fell asleep under layers of easy heat and soft habits. When you step out of your comfortable spot and face hard trials, you wake up the old biological machine that outlasted the glaciers. So the next time you feel like complaining about a cold room or a hard winter day, ask yourself one last question that will stay in your head forever. Are you going to let a little cold weather break your spirit, or will you tap into the fierce biological furnace that allowed your ancestors to conquer a frozen hell and keep the human story alive?